you've been waiting for is finally here. This Sunday, September 7th, all roads lead to the Miku playing field for a historic night. The United Workers' Party will present the entire slate of 17 candidates, men and women, ready to serve, ready to lead, and ready to right the wrongs being done against the people of our beloved country. Come here from our dynamic new candidates, our powerful speakers, and our trusted visionary leader as we unveil the team and the plans to return hope, prosperity, and opportunity to St. Lucia. Bring your rags, bring your crew, and join the movement. This is a night you don't want to miss. Sunday, September 7th from 4 p.m. at the Miku playing field. Come stand with the United Workers' Party. Together, we will right the wrong. St. Lucia, the moment you've been waiting for is finally here. This Sunday, September 7th, all roads lead to the Miku playing field for a historic night. The United Workers' Party will present the entire slate of 17 candidates, men and women, ready to serve, ready to lead, and ready to right the wrongs being done against the people of our beloved country. Come here from our dynamic new candidates, our powerful speakers, and our trusted visionary leader as we unveil the team and the plans to return hope, prosperity, and opportunity to St. Lucia. Bring your rags, bring your crew, and join the movement. This is a night you don't want to miss. Sunday, September 7th from 4 p.m. at the Miku playing field. Come stand with the United Workers' Party. Together, we will right the wrong. St. Lucia, the moment you've been waiting for is finally here. This Sunday, September 7th, all roads lead to the Miku playing field for a historic night. The United Workers' Party will present the entire slate of 17 candidates, men and women, ready to serve, ready to lead, and ready to right the wrongs being done against the people of our beloved country. Come here from our dynamic new candidates, our powerful speakers, and our trusted visionary leader as we unveil the team and the plans to return hope, prosperity, and opportunity to St. Lucia. Bring your rags, bring your crew, and join the movement. This is a night you don't want to miss. Sunday, September 7th from 4 p.m. at the Miku playing field. Come stand with the United Workers' Party. Together, we will right the wrong. St. Lucia, the moment you've been waiting for is finally here. This Sunday, September 7th, all roads lead to the Miku playing field for a historic night. The United Workers' Party will present the entire slate of 17 candidates, men and women, ready to serve, ready to lead, and ready to right the wrongs being done against the people of our beloved country. Come here from our dynamic new candidates, our powerful speakers, and our trusted visionary leader as we unveil the team and the plans to return hope, prosperity, and opportunity to St. Lucia. Bring your rags, bring your crew, and join the movement. This is a night you don't want to miss. Sunday, September 7th from 4 p.m. at the Miku playing field. Come stand with the United Workers' Party. Together, we will right the wrong. St. Lucia, the moment you've been waiting for is finally here. This Sunday, September 7th, all roads lead to the Miku playing field for a historic night. The United Workers' Party will present the entire slate of 17 candidates, men and women, ready to serve, ready to lead, and ready to right the wrongs being done against the people of our beloved country. Come here from our dynamic new candidates, our powerful speakers, and our trusted visionary leader as we unveil the team and the plans to return hope, prosperity, and opportunity to St. Lucia. Bring your rags, bring your crew, and join the movement. This is a night you don't want to miss. Sunday, September 7th from 4 p.m. at the Miku playing field. Come stand with the United Workers' Party. Together, we will right the wrong. St. Lucia, the moment you've been waiting for, is finally here. This Sunday, September 7th, all roads lead to the Miku playing field for a historic night. The United Workers' Party will present the entire slate of 17 candidates, men and women, ready to serve, ready to lead, and ready to right the wrongs being done against the people of our beloved country. Come here from our dynamic new candidates, our powerful speakers, and our trusted visionary leader as we unveil the team and the plans to return hope, prosperity, and opportunity to St. Lucia. Bring your rags, bring your crew, and join the movement. This is a night you don't want to miss. Sunday, September 7th from 4 p.m. at the Miku playing field. Come stand with the United Workers' Party. Together, we will right the wrong.
We have the political leadership of the United Workers' Party in the persons of political leader and leader of the opposition, Honorable Alan Shasney, Deputy Political Leader, Senator Dominic Fede, and the other Deputy Political Leader, Mr. Guy Joseph. And they will be making presentations to you on various subjects. But before we launch into our presentations, let me extend a special welcome to those of you who are viewing on live stream, especially those of you in the diaspora who tune in on a weekly basis to keep abreast with what is happening in your homeland, St. Lucia. I will begin the proceedings by reading to you a press release from the United Workers' Party, which calls for the immediate resignation of Speaker Claudius Francis and Deputy Prime Minister Ernest Hilaire. The United Workers' Party is deeply disturbed by the shocking incident that occurred during a recent sitting of Parliament, where Deputy Prime Minister Ernest Hilaire assaulted media practitioner Ms. Eldris Charles as she sought to carry out her professional duties. Equally alarming has been the conduct of Speaker of the House Claudius Francis, who, instead of safeguarding the integrity of Parliament and protecting the rights of the press and women, attempted to cover up the incident by initially alleging that there was no wrongdoing on the part of the Deputy Prime Minister. This brazen attempt at intimidating and deflecting cannot be ignored. At the time of the incident, Ms. Charles was attempting to interview Minister Hilaire in his capacity as Minister of Information and Broadcasting in connection with the recent attacks on journalist Lisa Joseph and other women by Minister Richard Frederick via his weekly talk show. The pattern of hostility and aggression toward the media and women by members of this Labour government is unacceptable, dangerous, and a direct attack on press freedom and the hard-working men and women in St. Lucia. If Parliament, the highest democratic institution in our land, is to be reduced to a space where elected officials can abuse, intimidate, and silence journalists and women with impunity, then those entrusted with upholding its dignity and independence are unfit to hold their offices. The United Workers' Party therefore calls for the immediate resignation of Deputy Prime Minister Ernest Hilaire for his assault on a member of the media and abuse of power. Secondly, Speaker Claudius Francis for his shameful role in attempting to cover up the incident and defend the indefensible. St. Lucians deserve leaders who respect the rule of law, the independence of Parliament, and the freedom of the press. Anything less is a betrayal of our democracy. The United Workers' Party stands firmly with Ms. Eldris Charles, Ms. Lisa Joseph, and all women in St. Lucia. We will not remain silent while this Labour government continues to erode our democracy and trample on the rights of our people. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, let me just further add that we have seen the deflection tactics of the government as they seek to mislead the public by suggesting that the video footage revealing the act of assault on the part of Minister Ernest Hilaire was AI generated. If you refer to this as AI, you must mean that it was actual images, because what we saw was an act perpetrated by Minister Ernest Hilaire. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go right into our presentations. And to start off, I will call on Senator Dominic Fede, who will be speaking on the subject of tourism and focusing in particular on tourism arrivals here in St. Lucia as it impacts our main economic driver, the industry, the tourism industry. Senator Dominic Fede.
Thank you very much, Spider. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us on Facebook. Taxi drivers at La Paz, Carenage, and Point Serafin remain without trips. Hotel industry staff struggle with rotation, reducing their working hours to as low as 2 days, in some cases weekly. St. Lucians who have invested in Airbnbs and other tourism accommodation businesses are struggling to fill their rooms. Vendors cry out for more business as their earnings have been significantly reduced. Is that better? Yeah? Workers in the duty-free stores have seen their commissions disappear. Captains and crew members of dayboat charters, mostly locally owned, have seen significantly reduced customers. Tours and attraction owners complain about the reduced cash flow and profitability. Banks struggle to receive payments on loans from tourism businesses and industry workers. Farmers from our rural districts struggle to maintain the lost business and the fallout from the low tourism arrival numbers. The above crisis is largely due to an industry grossly mismanaged by the St. Lucia Labour Party administration. The result of this mismanagement by Labour is a crushing blow to our cruise arrivals. The numbers from the Tourism Authority suggest the following. For the month of January, they suggest that the destination in cruise arrivals grew by 10%. For the month of February, they suggested that we had a 24% decline, crushing blow when compared to February of 2024. The month of March, we've seen a significant decline as well, 21% decline, reports the St. Lucia Tourism Authority. In the month of April, they suggest that the numbers also went down to 1%. But it got worse in the month of May. The numbers suggest that our cruise arrivals in May this year, when compared to last year, declined by a whopping 72%. Yes, you heard right, 72%. In the month of June, the numbers were also significantly down by 71%. And in the month of July, the cruise arrivals to the country went down by 72%. The above represents the worst low season cruise performance the country has ever recorded in history, outside of a pandemic, a natural disaster, or a global shock. It begs the question, does this low performance have anything to do with a protest from the cruise industry to the GPH deal? St. Lucians are aware by now that not only has the government leased the port for $1, but they have given the GPH company one of the sweetest deals ever to be recorded in Caribbean history. We would have also witnessed that when GPH announced a deal in Antigua to redevelop and manage their cruise port, that several cruise lines belonging to two of the largest companies in the cruising world decided that they were going to pull up the anchor and go to another destination. That represented almost 80% of Antigua's cruise business. In response, the Antiguan government decided that this blow was too heavy for the people and the stakeholders of Antigua to survive. They went to those two cruise companies that control most of the brands that you know in the cruise business and said to them that they would exempt them from the increasing fees that would have been attracted by the GPH agreement of that country. So as a result, the increased taxes which GPH would have leveraged on the rest of the cruise industry does not apply to a significant number of Antigua's cruise arrivals. In St. Lucia, we have seen no such development. So therefore, we have no indication that a similar move is afoot by the St. Lucia Labour Party administration. But what we do see is a continuing trend by the numbers of cruise arrivals going to our neighbors. So while our taxi drivers lament that they have not had any ships in St. Lucia, we continue to see numbers in Dominica, we continue to see numbers in St. Vincent and other neighboring Caribbean islands outperforming St. Lucia, whereby even in the low summer months, they are getting some level of business to keep them afloat. So the GPH deal, which will now increase the cruise tax or the head tax on visitors coming to our shores, to $12.50 US, is already having its impact on the island's success as a cruise destination. We await to see whether the 72% in May and the 72% decline in June and the 72% decline in July would actually be improved upon in the coming months. And so now, we also see that this bad performance in the cruise industry took effect in the hotel industry as well. Guests staying in hotels in the month of January declined by 2%. Guests staying in the month of February in St. Lucia declined by 2% as well. In the month of March, the declines were even steeper by 7%. And in April, a 0% increase. In the month of May, when the administration would have said to you that they had the best and biggest jazz festival, not even jazz could have caused an increase in the numbers for the month of May. We saw a significant decline. St. Lucians, therefore, ought to be mindful of the government's continuing tendency to cherry-pick information and to be convenient with the information they report on these festivals. The question is then arisen that while many St. Lucians will enjoy the local festivities by being gifted free tickets by the Labour Party administration, The question as to whether spending 20 or 25 million, we are left here to speculate because we have not received any pronouncement by the administration what is the exact cost of the Jazz Festival. But what we do know is that the authorities have said that the Jazz Festival remains the island's main tourism marketing event. But in the month that we held the festival, we recorded a minus 3% in tourism arrivals to the country. In the month of June, a crushing blow was dealt to the local tourism industry, where some 12% we recorded in terms of a decline to the destination. The minister cited World Cup last year and rooms being under renovation as the problems. But we would like to submit that these could not be problems because the destination only filled some 70% of its total room stock, leaving another 30% of total rooms in St. Lucia extremely empty. And so the minus 12% that we have seen in tourist arrivals in the month of June cannot be because of rooms. In the month of July, you would have seen the minister said that we had the best carnival ever. But the tourism authorities' report suggests that even the best carnival could not save the numbers for the month of July because we also recorded negative results in the month of July. The minister, though, did say that there has been a reduction in the number of St. Lucians in the diaspora participating in the carnival festivities here in St. Lucia. The U.S. market, consequently, is down in July 2025 when compared to July 2024 by 2%. And the UK market continues to record a crisis situation where it is down by 23% in July this year when compared to July last year. So we have here some very crushing numbers. The numbers for the yacht sector is also significantly down by double digits. So in the yacht sector, in the hotel industry, as well as the cruise industry, we continue to register a crisis within the tourism sector. Crime continues to affect our brand. The reviews on TripAdvisor and other sites are quite clear as to what visitors that have experienced St. Lucia think of its safety. Airlift continues to be in crisis. St. Lucians would have noted the announcement by Virgin Atlantic, TUI, and Sunwing, all in recent times, while several U.S. flights have disappeared ever since this St. Lucia Labour Party administration took office. These U.S. flights includes American Airlines out of Dallas, American Airlines out of Chicago, American Airlines out of JFK, JetBlue out of Newark, as well as many other flights. Reduced budgetary allocations for consumer marketing is also one of the areas where this administration has faltered significantly. It would have meant that the direct consumer marketing spend would have been significantly reduced, thus exposing less people to the destination of St. Lucia. Clearly, a lack of confidence among cruise stakeholders in the government of St. Lucia has resulted in some of the worst numbers in history. And so therefore, the time has come for change. It is time to right the wrong. We can only change these problems if we change the government. So, I need to make a special plea to you to come out this Sunday. Come and join the United Workers' Party. Send a very clear signal to the government that we are less than impressed with the way that they are managing not just tourism, but the way that they're managing crime, the way that they're managing our parliament, the way that they're managing our democracy, the way that they're managing cost of living, the way that they're managing our healthcare sector. St. Lucia, we have got to get it out of this crisis. I see you on Sunday. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Faley. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I will be calling upon the political leader of the opposition and parliamentary representative from Micoud South, the Honorable Alan Chasney, who will be making a presentation addressing the issue of the GPH, Global Port Holding, and our healthcare system here in St. Lucia. I now present the Honorable Alan Chasney.
Good morning to all the viewers, both here in St. Lucia and in the diaspora. I want to deal with two specific issues this morning. First of all is the St. Jude's Hospital, and the second one would be the GPH deal, or steal, as some people have referred to it as. In the case of St. Jude's, I think that all St. Lucians would have already understood the difference between the old St. Jude's and the new St. Jude's building that my government had initiated. The old building is 80 years old, and when it was first built, it was not designed to be a hospital. It was during World War II that the US military made it into a hospital. And as you remember, in 2009, September 9th to be exact, there was a catastrophic fire that destroyed that building. And it was the decision then of the Stephenson King administration, of which I was a cabinet member. The decision was made to rebuild the old building. Initially, simply to replace what was there, but nonetheless to rebuild the old building. And under that time, 2 years, about $30 million was spent on trying to fix the building, repair it. It was not completed. The new administration, Kenny Anthony administration, came in, and after taking some time to review the situation, made the decision that they were going to expand on what Stephenson King was attempting to do and actually make it a full-fledged hospital in the same building. And we saw that 5 years went by and over $100 million was spent on trying to fulfill that mission. When my administration came in and we had a study done, we recognized that even if we were to complete the building, it would be subpar and inadequate. But it was difficult to assess how much it was actually going to cost to finish the building. The estimates that were provided by Kenny Anthony's team in a letter in April of 2016 said that at minimum it was going to take another $100 million and approximately another year to complete. The study that we did said yes, it would be $100 million, but based on the assumption that the electricals, the plumbing, and the sewage system, and some of the structures of the building were okay. The report went on to say that it was suspect as to whether that would be the case, and therefore it would take longer and cost substantially more than the $100 million. It was on the basis of that report that my administration, looking at our overall development plans for the South. So remember, we were talking about building a new airport terminal to increase the size of the airport by threefold. We were talking about putting a cruise ship facility with home porting. We had the DSH project that had already started with the horse racing track and now was to go into a second phase of a university, a hotel, and a casino, and then to be followed by more hotels and a residential area in Beau-Saint-Jou, as well as the building of a new island off of Ile Pirata, which is where the cruise ship berth would have been. We saw the expansion of the call centers. We saw the expansion during our tenure of Coconut Bay, and we were looking at developments in Black Bay, as well as canals. So with that kind of development taking place, clearly having a hospital that would only meet the immediate needs of the South was not a good plan. And so the decision was to make a substantially bigger hospital. And I want to say that the physical size of the new building that we were building was 20% bigger than OKEU. Bigger than OKEU, 20%. And the goal was to make upstairs an international hospital, hence you had the helicopter pad, and the bottom part of the building would have been our local hospital. All in all, we would have had over 150 beds available at that facility. And to convert the old building, because we'd spent so much money on it already, into a university, and specifically into a nursing school, because we know that as many nurses as we can train, those persons are going to get jobs both locally and also internationally. We have an aging population in the world. The demand for nurses is high, and we knew that any amount of money invested in helping to train our young women and men to become nurses, that this was a viable career path for many St. Lucians. The new government came in and decided that it was going to take some chemical and some paint to fix up the building. And after they did their own analysis, they believed that they would have been able to finish the old building faster and cheaper than it was going to be to complete the new building. That's what their report said. And on the basis of that, they abandoned continuing the new hospital and decided to focus their efforts on the old building. So here's what we know. We know Stevenson King, Kenny Anthony, and Philip Pierre all had the ambition to convert an 80-year-old building that had a catastrophic fire and to somehow salvage that building and to present it to the people of St. Lucia, and particularly to the people in the south of the island, as being their solution. So collectively, Stevenson King, $30 million, Kenny Anthony, about $110 million, and now we're hearing from the Philip Pierre administration that they're going to spend $270 million on this building. So collectively, $400 million to build a hospital that would be outdated and antiquated the moment it opens. And up to now, we cannot get confirmation as to how many beds this is going to contain. No details. All we keep hearing is a story, it's soon come, soon come. We're there, we're almost there. That's 4 years has gone by. So we see 11 years between the three of them and $400 $400 million. Versus we went in to build a brand new building that would have been state-of-the-art, that would have lasted the South and facilitated the growth that we had ambitions for in the South. We spent $130 million. And that was in our 5-year term. And remember, our 5-year term was interrupted by COVID for 2 years. This is damning when you look at the evidence, and we can look back in hindsight. And the question is, who is going to be responsible for paying that bill? It's the people of St. Lucia. So the people of St. Lucia are going to pay $400 million just for the old building. And if you want to include our new building, over $500 million EC dollars. Now, I want to put $400 million into proper perspective. $400 million is what the estimate was to build the brand new airport terminal. So the airport terminal, the jetways, the road going up to the second floor, the new tarmac, and also all the new traffic control tower, everything was going to cost $400 million. So it's very easy for people to see whether, in fact, we've gotten value for our dollar. We can see that we have 3 former prime ministers that clearly had no ambition, have no vision to where St. Lucia was going to go. They're actually building something for yesterday, not something for tomorrow. I think that this is a project that we all need to keep a very close eye on. And we have to hold this government accountable, because they had the opportunity to have put their protect the victory and silly politics aside and to have done what was right for the people in the South and done what was right for the people of this country. And they failed to do it because they are so blinded by politics and envy. And sadly, we are all being asked to pay and foot that bill, not only in terms of having to finance it, but the time that has been lost. The people who have stayed in the stadium, the St. Lucians who have had inadequate services because of the conditions of the stadiums and the limitations of the stadium. And they've destroyed hope in the South. The second thing I want to talk about this morning is the GPH. And I think that the situation that occurred in the House, where I was able to bring to the attention to the St. Lucian public the hypocrisy and the lies of the Labour Party. You'll remember very clearly that my administration, and me in particular, that I was demonized over the DSH project. And there were 2 things specifically that were brought up about the DSH project. One was that we leased the land, $1 an acre, for 99 years. And that was 180 acres. They started off trying to say it was 1,000 acres, but we were able to now clarify that it wasn't. And that the land that was being leased was to develop the horse racing track. And so in leasing the land to DSH, it was to give them permission now to develop the property. They brought the money to the table to build the horse racing track. I'm in court with Richard Frederick because he indicated that I gave DSH access to the CIP or passports to be able to fund that. That is a categorical lie. DSH was never approved for a CIP project for the horse racing track. DSH had received CIP approval for the hotel development, but never even started that process, even though they were approved. But it had never included the horse racing track. So in fact, the $30 million that was spent by DSH to build the horse racing track was their own money. So where is the hypocrisy and the inconsistency? We now found out, halls of justice, that the government of St. Lucia leased the land to NH for $1. We also now know to be fact that there are several parcels of land on our port that was leased to GPH for $1. Now, this dollar is a nominal amount that is normally included in any legal transaction. So exactly what Ernest Hilaire said. We've rented them the land. But in exchange in renting the land, they've agreed to develop it. Well, let's look at that. So in the case of DSH, we rented them the land. In exchange, they were going to build a horse racing track. They were going to operate the horse racing track. They were going to fund all the operation expenses of the horse racing track. They were going to promote the horse racing track. But all of the money that DSH was using was their own money. Let's look at the GPH deal. You're going to rent them the land at the port. But the difference is that the head tax, which is revenue that the government was obtaining, the government gave up the head tax. In exchange, gave GPH not the $6.50 that the government of St. Lucia was making, but increased it to $10. That's money that belonged to the state. GPH didn't do anything to generate that. They haven't built anything in St. Lucia. But since April, we have given them $10. 700,000 passengers came in, $7 million in the first year they've made. They then turned around, and we have it here, that 8th of April 2024, that they gave GPH incentives, as we would have given DSH incentives. In this particular case, they gave them 100% exemption from the payment of income tax for 30 years. And I want to say that these incentives are also contingent on the concession agreement that SLASPA and the government of St. Lucia signed with GPH. What does that mean? That means if the concession agreement grants them an extension to 40 years, that these incentives automatically will be extended for another 10 years. So 100% waiver of income tax. Exemption from payment of withholding tax for a period of 30 years. On the repatriation of profits, dividends, mortgage payments, capital investment payments, anything that generates revenue for GPH will be exempt. That they be exempted from paying any property tax. That the grant be exempt for blocks and parcels 181, 182, etc., and any third-party lender financing. So I want to explain that, because sometimes we peruse over these things. We don't understand what is it that the government has done. So I've already told you, in the case of DSH, we leased them the land, but DSH brought their own money to the table. In this case, with GPH, they've leased them the land, they've given them the money, the $10. It can be anywhere between $7 million a year to $10 million a year. And the purpose of leasing them the land was that GPH could use the land in St. Lucia that they didn't own, that they're only having to pay $1 a year for, so that GPH can give it to the bank as collateral. Remember, GPH has agreed to pay off the loan of SLASPA. So the Bank of St. Lucia, from what I understand, has given GPH the loan, and if it's not the Bank of St. Lucia, it's First National, it's one of our local banks, has given GPH the loan and taking our land as collateral. Our land. They've not had to put any other collateral of their own. And understand what the implications of that are. If this deal goes bad, whichever bank has given the loan, the bank is now entitled to have control of the land. They've brought nothing to the table. Nothing. They are exempted from excise tax, 100% grant of waiver of excise tax on the procurement of 2 vehicles, 100% waiver of customs duty on the procurement of 2 vehicles, and that we've also agreed to lease them the lands. So I only put up 1 lease. There are 4 leases. The Vendors Arcade, the shopping mall, La Place Carnage, where the old customs building was, and where the fast ferries are. All that land is being leased for $1 a year, the separate parcels. And the money to develop the properties, because they said they're going to now spend $45 million, and I want to get into that, US, of which $20 million is going to be for the loan. Understand that. The capital that they're talking about is to take over the loan that SLASPA was already paying for. So $25 million US dollars is what they're going to spend. Quick calculation. If they're going to get 10 million US dollars a year for 30 years, that's 300 million US dollars. If you get it for 40 years, 400 million US dollars, assuming that we only are at a million passengers. And we all think that the cruise industry is going to grow organically. So to spend $25 million and to take over the loan, $45 million US, we're giving them 400 million US dollars. So it means that over a 40-year period of time, GPH will get 10 million US dollars a year, and we will get 1 million US dollars a year. And that 1 million US dollars, they get to control. They get to decide how it's going to be spent. Now, there's another document, very, very, very important document, which is both a cabinet paper and a report from a committee that was put together to review the GPH deal. So this was a report to cabinet that was presented, let me show you. And signed by Stevenson King. That's the report that he put out, that he sent to cabinet. And the report says, the committee recommended by the way of an interim report the rejection of the GPH proposal which was presented to cabinet for approval on the basis that it does not represent the best economic and financial option for the country over the next 30 years. That the proposal be rejected. Moreover, SLASPA has, subsequent to the receipt of the GPH proposal, developed a master plan for Castries Port, which it intends to use to guide the development of the Castries Seaport. Negotiations with prospective investors will therefore be based upon the master plan. Since the submission of the initial proposal, the representatives of GPH met with the Minister of Tourism, Investment, Creative Industries on March 29th and submitted a revised proposal on April 1st. Appropriately, April 1st. It says, GPH should indicate upfront the revenue sharing proposal as part of its revised proposal. So if the government of St. Lucia was already receiving $6.50, and it's the government of St. Lucia that went to the cruise lines and told them they're going to increase the tax now to $12, should there not be fair sharing? Shouldn't it be that the government of St. Lucia at minimum gets $5? Or the $6.50 that they had already? And tell GPH, whatever amount you increase it to past the $6.50 is yours up until maybe $12. And anytime the head tax goes higher than $12, then there'll be a sharing of that amount. Why should the government of St. Lucia have given up the revenue that they already had? And especially knowing that GPH played no role, zero role, in getting the head tax to go up. I can say to you, as the former Prime Minister of St. Lucia, that the cruise lines had already agreed to increase the tax. So there was no negotiations by this government or GPH to get the tax increased. This dual approach toward agreeing on the capital investment before negotiating the revenue sharing agreement is not preferred approach, as both the capital investment and the revenue sharing elements of the concession agreement are interlocked. You can't look at sharing what they're going to spend without knowing how the revenue is going to be shared. Simple English, basic common sense. They said SLASPA is required to maintain the cruise infrastructure over the last concession. So even though GPH is going to be funding the capital investment and improvements of the port, the maintenance of the ports over the 30 or 40-year period has to be undertaken by SLASPA. And it goes on to say, this includes dredging and other maintenance works that it will be required to undertake. It is strongly recommended that the revenue sharing agreement provides SLASPA with sufficient revenue to cover these expenses. Now, if it's gone to $12 or $12.50, because we still don't know, and we know that GPH is getting 10, and we know that solid waste gets $1.50, it leaves $1 for SLASPA to be able to cover these expenses. That's the steal. GPH has told the government of St. Lucia the strength of Global Ports Holding brand is the ability to leverage all its operations worldwide to ensure that each destination receives what is reasonable and fair without retribution from the cruise lines as seen in the past. Well, we have not had to wait long. Dominic Fede has given you the arrival numbers. And our cruise ship arrivals are plummeting. It does not take long to figure out why. So Tommy Descartes has revealed to you that the deal in Antigua, when the Antigua government attempted to increase the tax for everyone, Carnival Cruise Lines and Royal Caribbean said, hell no. Hell no. And the deal was amended, and Carnival and Royal Caribbean were exempted from the deal. What does that mean? It means any increase in the head tax do not apply to them. So they're still paying the same fee. Meanwhile, Dominica has not increased its fees. St. Vincent has not increased its fees. And Grenada have not increased their fees. St. Kitts has not increased its fees. And as a result of it, the cruise lines are going where it's cheaper. So now that our price is $12, the cruise lines are going somewhere else. So tell me how signing the agreement with GPH is going to protect us, because GPH does not represent Dominica, does not represent St. Vincent, does not represent Grenada, and now we know in Antigua they only represent all of the other cruise lines, which makes up 20%, but it does not represent Carnival and Royal Caribbean. We've seen since the deal in Antigua, the only company to have increased the numbers into Antigua has been Carnival. Brings up an interesting point. When certain persons would try to convince St. Lucians that the idea of building a cruise ship port in Vieux Fort was not a good idea, then why is it, since we abandoned that project, that now Antigua has been made a home port? And the same Carnival that we had been negotiating with has split their business between Barbados and Antigua. So St. Lucia was sold out by this government and by GPH and by those same persons that would come and try to tell you that it could never work. The fact is, we would have had one of the best home ports in the world because of the proximity as to where the cruise ship was coming in and where the airport was. And the decision that when we were building the new airport terminal, instead of demolishing the old building, we would convert the old building into a cruise ship terminal, so when the passengers arrived off the plane, they would be processed privately at that old airport. Finally, GPH, as part of the signed concession agreement, will work with the St. Lucian Air Seaports Authority to revise the master plan and provide expertise to look at possible scenarios for cargo relocation and the improvement of cruise experiences. Immediate implementation of a new head tax of $10. Now, the cargo brings up an interesting point. So it says here, the GPH shall, throughout the contract period, have the right to match any proposals or offers to develop and build any cruise port developments in Vieux Fort and St. Lucia. I have no idea how it's worded in the concession agreement, but that's certainly what it's worded in the review document. And it begs the question, what was the final decision on Vieux Fort? So we're making all these sacrifices, and Vieux Fort is paying the price. What's interesting here, that they have a map of the master plan shown below. And they have all these letters pointing out the different locations. And C and G is where Renault has bought the land by Bonanza. And it says, relocation of roll-on, roll-off berth from southern end of berth 5 to Bonanza Bay. And C, construction of a new berth to accommodate lumber and break bulk vessels. It has become so difficult to keep up with the lies of this government. So why was the land sold to Renault? And Renault is currently doing the exact same thing that was proposed by SLASPA. Instead now, it is being done privately for one company rather than being there for everybody. And to relieve the pressure that's taking place at the port. But clearly SLASPA is not in a position to do it because the money that SLASPA was earning and potentially how much more money SLASPA could have earned, they're not in a position to develop it. So what did they have to do? Sell it. And when the land came available for them to buy it, and we've seen in the documents, in the minutes of the meeting and a letter that was written by SLASPA to tell the National Housing Corporation, we are interested in purchasing the land. And notwithstanding that, National Housing sold the land to Renault for 2.7 million EC dollars. Think about that for a moment. Over 100,000 square feet. Land in town is $1,000 a square feet. This is waterfront property. You want to tell me the waterfront property is worth $27 a square foot? And meanwhile, you're selling lands in Babonneau and other parts of the island for $25 and $30 a square foot? This is what we have as a government. And the numbers on the St. Jude's Hospital, the numbers on this GPH deal don't add up. We have a member of parliament in Ernest Hilaire. And let's accept it, that there has been a pattern of behavior with this man for the longest time. We could never forget when Timothy Polio asked him whether in fact Jufali had a diplomatic passport. And remember, we never knew about Jufali when he was the High Commissioner. We were never told. It's only when the story broke because of a court case. And he was on that phone call spinning. When we found out that there was an account opened up with Jufali, he denied. He said he's never had a joint account with anybody. Yet the evidence is there by the Auditor General, not by me, by the Auditor General, confirming that there was an account that was opened up and that Jufali put the money in. And the signatures to the account was Jufali and the High Commissioner, who was Ernest Hilaire. Never got permission to open up the account. Never told the government of St. Lucia, the Minister of Finance, that money was arrived. Did not ask for permission as to how. And he spun that. And then when he fraudulently obtained a car, a Range Rover, and tried to bring that car into St. Lucia and got caught, he spun that as well. And I dare say, benefited from support of technocrats and different officers in St. Lucia to facilitate that, going as far as getting a case withdrawn. What was the court case? The court case was no big case. The court case was simply to provide the evidence to show that you own the car. And the issue was he was the High Commissioner. And he used his position to put the car in the name of the state. That's what he did wrong. He abused his office. And he put it in the name of the state so the car would be purchased duty-free in the UK. And people say, well, the UK government should take it up. How is the UK government going to take it up? They have a letter from the High Commissioner saying the car belonged to the High Commission. The question is, who gave him permission to do that? You then had Philip Martinez say that there were 12,000 files sold. Ernest Hilaire gave us all kinds of spin. That's not true. He has to ask for permission to give us the information. All of those things. Spin, spin, spin. Only to find out that when we get the contracts, that Philip Martinez was 100% right. 12,000 files. You then come out and say that you have suspended the program, the infrastructure program, and you've terminated contracts. But there's nothing in the public domain or any document that has come out from the government of St. Lucia to say that's the case. And I have to ask myself, if in fact the program has been suspended and terminated, and the contract terminated, why is Galaxy in Japan with the minister as we speak today? Why? What are they doing? What are they selling? More spin. When I confronted him in the House about the dollar lease, no, that's not true. I'm going to stop Parliament for you to be able to produce the document. Well, we produced the document. Here are the leases. Here's two of them. that you leased the land for $1, come and tell us about that. Oh, it's rent, and there was conditions to the lease. Papi Show, taking all of us for morons. Spin. And I'm very happy that the party has put out a press statement on this Eldridge situation, because it's worrying. It's worrying that a Speaker of the House would have come out and been so adamant in protecting the innocence of Ernest Hilaire, and that he, Ernest Hilaire, also came out and said, I never touched her. Yet, a video comes out and shows otherwise. And where's the spin now? AI. But as Spider said on his show last night, AI in this case stands for actual image. You can't even confront the truth. No matter how many times the proof has been presented in front of him, it has always been the same answer. And as guilty and as unexcusable as to what Hilaire has done, the Prime Minister of this country is even more accountable, because ultimately it is his word. He is the authority. Ministers serve at his pleasure. And to have a minister of government that repeatedly finds himself in these kinds of messes and continuously lies and spins to protect the truth, when he's given away hundreds of millions of dollars, the worst deals that this country has ever seen has been under this minister. We see the cruise ship numbers declining. We see hotel arrival numbers declining. And these are monies that could have been used to help strengthen our hospitals. As a person said the other day, for people in St. Lucia who don't have the benefit of going to a private facility and have to depend on Betty Wells and OKEU and the healthcare centers, going back to school. Imagine what $1 billion US can do. And we're talking about $3 billion US. The roads, the schools, the playing facilities. And I've not even gotten into all of the other projects, whether it's NLA, CIP, halls of justice, the 2.5% tax, that this government has betrayed the trust of the people of this country. That's what the fact is. It's not sufficient to say enough is enough anymore, when you cannot even trust anything that this government says. Richard Fedrick now coming and saying, well, he never said that the evidence was in the custody suites. Are you kidding? That's exactly what he said in the House. So he's lying about the lie he already said. And he's another one. Spin, spin, spin. It's always somebody else's fault. So I want to say to all of us, United Workers' Party was preparing for this day. I used an example in my speech on Sunday, and I talked about Noah building his ark. And nobody knew what he was doing and why he was doing it until it started to rain. And when it started to pour and the place started to get flooded, everybody then understood why Noah built his ark. Well, the United Workers' Party has understood that this day was coming. And we have built a team of men and women to take this country out of the despair that we're in and to return honesty and integrity to this country. To return hope and pride, nationalism, where we can stand and be proud of who we are as St. Lucians and be proud of the people who are representing us. And on Sunday, we're going to be launching those 17 candidates. So I'm inviting all of you, regardless of whether you have supported our party in the past. This is a new United Workers' Party. This is a party that's going to celebrate. And I know in speaking to Lady Compton The Comptons have never wanted to celebrate the death of Sir John, and they've only wanted to celebrate his birth. But tomorrow, Sunday, is an opportunity for us to have a fresh beginning. September 7th, in Micoud North. Come, join us. Show the Labour Party that we are ready for change. And we're not going to say it's enough is enough anymore. We've already passed that point. What we're going to say to the Labour Party on Sunday is ring the bell. Come and join us on this crusade to rescue St. Lucia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the leader of the opposition and member of parliament from Micoud South. And now I will call on Mr. Guy Joseph, the deputy political leader of the United Workers' Party, who will address you on a variety of topics, including an address in a Creole language.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montoute. A pleasant good morning to all our viewers and listeners, both here and in the diaspora. As we continue in our series of press briefings, this is the place where we bring you factual information. I also want to pause a moment to acknowledge the people of Castries Southeast and to say a pleasant good morning to every one of them for reposing their trust and confidence in me, in asking me to remain as the person to run the Castries Southeast seat for the United Workers' Party. We have seen the reopening of school. Our kids are back at school. Some of them still face challenges, but I want to congratulate the parents and everyone who have contributed in one way or the other for our safe return to school of the children of this nation. I know most of the new students for SAAFA will be going in on the 8th, and we will continue to work with you in order to achieve the highest levels of education that can be attained. I want to deal with a couple matters before I go into the substantial issues that I will deal with. One of them is that we've heard statements made by ministers in government, especially in the Parliament of St. Lucia, where they continue to give false and misleading information to the people of St. Lucia, and they have never been asked to provide the documentation that is required. Now, anybody who understands the procedures of Parliament would know that an opposition member can say something and not be asked to provide the documents. But every elected member, because they are in government and they have access to all of the information, they are required to present the documents. Yet still we see the Speaker of the House permitting so many individuals on the government side to get away with this. So one of the things we heard most recently is that the exhibits or the evidence was in the custody suites, and the government went quickly and destroyed the custody suites. We all know that is not true in St. Lucia. And if one person should know that, it should be the Speaker of the House. Because you would recall when the first attempt to break down the old prison, there was an injunction placed on the government And it delayed that for an extended period of time. So how did they all of a sudden run inside there and knock down the building? And the information that was given again was false information. Because from my own research, there were 2 containers on the back lawn of custody suites, and that is where some of the evidence was kept. So for a minister who continues to lie and tell half-truths, you know, he's like the devil who came in the form of a serpent and told Eve, did God say that if you eat the fruit, you will die? He said, you will not surely die. He didn't say you would not die, you know. He said you would not surely die. That was mixing truth and lies. And when you see people do that, you know who's their father. I'm not the one who declares it. The word declares that he was a liar and a murderer from the beginning. And those who lie and murder are his children, children of the devil. So we have regularly, not people who make mistakes, you know, not people who receive information and use it, and afterwards you find out that the information was not accurate. We are talking about individuals who perpetuate lies, take the truth, twist it around, like the devil did to Eve in the garden, and say, well, that's not really going to happen. So here we are, and we can establish that the evidence was not in custody suites, but was in the containers. That is the information that is relevant. We need to understand. Now let's go to some of the key issues that was raised. Nou tan le Senator Dominic parle, il parle about sa ki ka fet an tourism an Saint-Lucie. Ek nou ka we pou denye 3 mwa an l'année sa, pou 3 mwa ki pase la, limo tourism an cruise sector, an se moun nan ka vini isi a sou batiman, ja desan pa 70%, 70% reduction compared to the same periods previously. So nou ka we depi gouvernement le ba mene GPH an touye, an jiba ay pwen an moutan, y pwen an descendant. Now nou ka parle about GPH paske leader opposition na parle about sa, ek ite ka moutouye nou yon debay ki fet. So le nou gade bagay tourism la. An se hotel la, la quantité moun ki te ka vini an descendant. Quantité plein qui te ka mene moun Saint-Lucie, nou ja ped an chay se plein sa, yo pa ka vole vini Saint-Lucie encore. Nou vleman de gouvernement, ek mwen vle Jean Saint-Lucie changer. Se Philippe J. Pierre même qui te dit, après te a fait combien l'année comme ministre tourisme, là il vini premier ministre, il dit pas te jamais savent tourisme, te tellement important et te ka fait tellement contribution pour l'économie Saint-Lucie. So nou ka kwe peut-être ite kopan à présent et ite kay me un homme en charge en tourisme, et bien ite kay travail pour that pli tourisme vini Saint-Lucie. mais de istam il dit nous il pas te comprendre. Et nous croyons comprendre à présent, mais isam still poko comprendre importance tourism because nous kawè pas dit temps Dominique Canipli tourist ka vini, Saint-Vincent, La Grenade, Antigua, en Saint-Lucie, c'est either 0 et bien minus. Nous en descendant. En yé pas qu'à monter en Saint-Lucie parce que puis bay qui ka vin plus cher et crime. Tout bay qui supposé monter ka descend et tout bay qui supposé descend ka monter. En bas gouvernement Philippe J. Pierre. Now, moi vle moun pour un petit temps et comprendre. C'est taxi driver, c'est vendeur. Yo pas ka faire rien. Gardez combien qui dernière fois ou un tourist boat en lawad là. C'est bâtiment qui kamene tourist qui dernière fois ouais yon en lawad là castoui. Mais yo di nous le yo mene GPH pli tourist kay vini Saint-Lucie. Eh ben nous jawe ça c'est un manchons. Now, an gade. Gouvernement dit nous comme ça, yo entra dans agreement. Et leader opposition nan moutoué nous en kay parlement ou changer. Monsieur il les mandé pour kay parlement doubout. Gardez tche un homme ni ou ça. Moi vle Saint-Lucie point anti chance et copan. Qui manière yon homme ça save la ni bagay ça. Et puis ka fait caltement chose ça en parlement. Nom la mande pour dou bout parlement. Parce que il kwe leader opposition pas ni document. Mais pas il savent document là because c'est lui qui fait deal là. C'est lui qui fait rangement. So pas dit so il est à capet tête li. Il n'est pas Parkinson Zembe Alzheimer, il pas changer. Qui manière ou ça toi dans agreement et qu'on ka fait moun kwe ou pas en pièce agreement et qu'on ka dou bout parlement pour dire leader opposition présenter document. Et Claudius, moi kay toujours do Claudius inutile. Inutile là kay prend dou bout de parlement. Mais merci bon Dieu il te fait. Puis si pas te fait yo te kay quoi leader opposition pas te document. Now Saint Lucia, take a little time and understand what we are saying. If Ernest Hiller could have stood in the parliament on a point of order to object to a statement that he knows to be true, what about the things we don't know about? That is the question that every St. Lucian need to ask themselves. And all of you who support the Labour Party, ask yourself, if a man can lie so bold in the Parliament of St. Lucia, what is he capable of doing when people don't know what he's doing? You see, now there's some document, it has been presented before, il dit pate loueter. Mweni document là, à la même, ek mwen sav Monsieur Spider ha parle about li, but mwen vle Saint-Lucien sav sa nou ka di. Ek tout moun Saint-Lucie, mi, nou ni sa yo kouye la, Land Registry Act, Caption 501, St. Lucia Revised Laws, dated 30th day of April 2024. C'est la place où mwen de c'est 2024 qui en lègle. Oui. A list by Charles III to GPH. Now, si Monsieur Chassenet présenté ça à Parlement, qui ça Claudius dit à sous ça, laisse à trouver quoi il présenté. Because il la, ek mwen vle tout Saint-Lucien sav. Monsieur Chasne pas fait pièce manchons. Moun nan ki te ka fait manchons en parlement Saint-Lucie, c'est Ernest Hille. Parce que c'est lui qui dit, personne pas sa présenter un document pour montrer that yo loué terre, eh ben yo bay terre, eh ben yo vend terre pour $1. So let document présenté koy. Pour qui ça? Claudius Paddy, Ernest Hille, nous kay suspendu from parliament parce que ou menti, pas just by parliament, but by whole pays. Milila, asu number 7, il dit, the rent payable shall be at a peppercorn rate of $1 EC. Ek ini EC allow sa. So c'est pas même $1 US. $1 EC per annum of the demised property and paid at the commencement of each lease year. Now, Mise question mwen vle ou mande Monsieur Ernest Hille, Philip J. Pierre et Stevenson King. Because c'est trois men nom ça qui responsable pour porte là en Saint-Lucie et deal ça qui fait là. Now, tout le monde savent, les acheté te, yo ka meye papier te en les noms, et ou ka ni sa nou kouye en land register. Now, moi vraiment de Saint-Lucien. Ou ka loué kay, ou ka loué en plot te bayan moun pou fan kay, ou ka loué en femme, côté ou ka loué te côté moun ka servi pour femme. Est ou le ou loué te bay moun, est ou ka meye te en non yo? Est ou ka ale en land registry ya, ek ou ka tiye non en lete ya, ek ou ka meye non moun nan loué te ya bay la. Eh bien, là où ka loué un kay, est-ce ou ka tiye kay lan les non, et ou ka meye kay lan les non moun nan. Now, mwen vle gouvernement, ek mwen vle Monsieur Richard Frederick, ki spokesman by Labour Party ya. Le ou ale a sou program ou jeudi oswe. Mwen, because ou pa même sav ki sa ki en empire list. Because c'est un homme qui pas avocat, qui ten pour espitier ba ou qui ça qui te ka passé. So isam c'est ouais Claudius qui avocat ti papier, on pas avocat go papier. Bon. Moi vle la walan les programmes là, espitier ça bay Saint-Lucie. Qui manière la ni land register. Ou savez ça land register ye, i ka di ki moun ki on te a sou non ki moun te a ye. Ek mili la i di number of entries 1. The date, the 12th of the 7th month, 2024. Septième mois, c'est July. Instrument number 2653 of 2024. Name and address of proprietors. So, te a register sous nom GPH St. Lucia Limited. Et qui juste ni care of Post Office Box GM 1004 Castries St. Lucia. Et initiati registrar et ini stamp land registry. So mwen vle yo di mwen ki manye yo di se loué yo loué terre. Et qui manière terre a sous nom GPH. Now, moi connais ta dans réponse là pour ça. Mais moi vle yo vini espitier ban nous Saint-Lucie. Parce que si moi loué terre moi ba ou pas ça aller pour un loan à sous terre moi. Si moi loué un appartement ba ou pas ça pour un loan à sous appartement moi loué ba ou. Qui manière GPH ça aller pour un loan et servi te anou ni a sou la wad la a sou harbor pour yo sa pour un loan pou fè zafè yo. St. Lucia, that is the sellout of this millennium, not the century, you know. Century is 100, millennium is 1,000. That is the sellout of the millennium. No government in the history of the Caribbean has done something so bad to its people as what Philip J. Pierre, Stephenson King, Ernest Hillel, and the Labour Party has done to St. Lucia. Ek Monsieur Chasne te ke espitiye, because mwen vle nou kopan. Nou pa vin isi a pou dou l'histoire. Nou ka prezante document pou moutou. Lease agreement la, ek register terre la. Ek tout gwa moun St. Lucie sav. Let te register asou non, pierson pa ha fe sa yo vle pi. Te ou se sa ou yon ki sa fe sa ou vle. Now, so GPH is using our land for security. GPH gets our money to develop the port. GPH pa dépenser l'argent yo pour develop port la. L'argent yo ka develop la, c'est l'argent yo ka collect from se cruise ship la. St. Lucie te already ka jwen se l'argent sa. So di mwen, tan sa, yo di yo take over loan na from Slasper. Ek l'argent ki moun yo ka paye, but se ek l'argent Slasper yo ka paye loan na. Parce que c'est Slasper qui te jaka collect se l'argent sa. Now tan sa, en 2 l'année, yo ka fait l'argent, yo paye by Slasper. So, but tan sa, yo ka collect l'argent, mais c'est Slasper qui ni pou maintain port la. St. Lucia, how can we allow a government to be so corrupt, because there is no other word to describe? This is corruption at the highest level. No communist country would do that. What they have done there. Philip J. Pierre is by far the worst minister of finance we have ever had in the history of Caribbean politics. If not the world. Because to tell me you're going to take an entity like Slasper with net revenue earnings and you're going to give it to GPH for nothing? St. Lucien, chaque container ki a sou waflek, mi mwen ni document la, because ma vle just di hot bay, ek nou pasa backup sa nou ka di ya ou sa. Mem te a yo bay GPH la, tan sa yo vle charge nou St. Lucien, ki kay orda an bay pou vini a support la. The proposal for the consideration of cabinet is an amendment to the St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority seaport tariff regulations to introduce a congestion charge of US $50 per container, or the equivalent in EC dollars. The equivalent is $135 per jour. So yo bay Slasper, yo bay GPH whole awad la. Kome akte pou $1 par l'année. Express la yon container ka occupy 8 freeze 40 by 8. 8 fours is 42. 320 square feet. Ou sav, la on a kay 16, la on a kay 20 by 20. C'est 400 pieds. That's 400 square feet. So, as place ki pli piti pase a kay ou ka fait avec 5 sheet plywood large, avec 5 sheet plywood longe. Ou ni pour payer, pour chaque jour container ou était là, ou ka payer $150. C'est ça yo propose pour charge. Bon, tant qui m'a dit yo ka payer container, yo ka payer 5 container de le yon dans les l'autre. Là ou passe bon la wad là ou ka wey. So chaque container qui yon a sous l'autre, ou ka payer l'autre $135. So à dans yon côté a, yo ka collect en haut $600. As far as moi apprend, c'est GPH qui ka joindre c'est l'argent ça, because ça c'est terre yo loué by GPH. Now moi vle gouvernement vini espitier ça ban nou. C'est pas moi qui n'bou vin 10 Saint-Lucien qui deal hot fait ek bagay propriété Saint-Lucien. Saint Lucia, the port does not belong to Philip J. Pierre, Stevenson King, Richard Frederick, or the St. Lucia Labour Party. The port is the property of every St. Lucian. That is a state asset. So, pas vin faire Philippe J. Pierre quoi because ou c'est premier ministre ou sa vend propriété nous pour rien et nous pas ni c'est en dit dans ça. Et un moun kay vle quoi faire moi quoi c'est couillon c'est nom ça couillon quoi. So personne pas draw à sans side pour deal ça qui descend là. C'est lycéen. Mande ko question ça. Now when vous quitter sec, when vous aller sur l'autre bail, puis là na chay bail nous te pour toucher. So, ces questions ça moi vle répondre. Minister King, Minister Pierre. Y'all were former prime ministers. Y'all were ministers responsible for the port. Tell us what happened. Tell us how y'all sold out the people of St. Lucia in the manner that y'all did. Now, Monsieur Philippe J. Pierre, a manifesto, Monsieur Saudi, ou di ou kay continue plan pour cruise port. Continue plans on page 12. Continue plans for a cruise port in Vieux-Fort and the enhancement of the Castries cruise port. Now, ou di, ou pate di nou se van nou kay van port la pour faire ça. Ou di nou te kay faire ça. Ou te kay continue plan. Now, seulement yaw sa continue en bay, ça c'est parce qu'il a déjà commencé. Now, nous savons les ba pas te commencé en rien pour faire un cruise port Vieux-Fort. C'est gouvernement monsieur Alan Chasney qui te commencé plan pour build un cruise port Vieux-Fort. So paton pour mettre nous ça manifesto en 2021 ou aller au sign agreement avec GPH that en rien pas ça fait Vieux-Fort. So est ou te menti ban nous à sou manifesto a là ou te dit ça eh ben est hi le kwenou. Dis nous est hi le kwenou eh ben est ou c'est part of deal là qui fait là. Now, I quitté GPH pour un moment because nous kay vie c'est taxi driver hot kay trouvé ko hot affecté. C'est the truckers are affected already. People have goods on the port, they cannot get it out. There are still school supplies stuck on the port because containers have not even been destuffed. Since when SLASPA was so incompetent? SLASPA has been one of the most competent authorities or quasi-government entity in St. Lucia. All of a sudden, Philip J. Pierre, Stevenson King, and Ernest Hill take charge, and SLASPA has become one of the worst performing entities in St. Lucia. Ask yourself, why? Pour qui raison une compagnie qui te corporate tellement bien qu'on SLASPA? Pas te jamais ni en dette yo pas te sa paye. Just qu'on SLASPA pas operate encore. Just qu'on a moun pas ça même jouen nan ti barrel à sous porte là. Just qu'on a se scanner qui te ka scan se bay la ka venir ça détruit. Tout se bay ou quoi ça c'est accident. That is the deliberate operations of this St. Lucia Labour Party to blindside the people of St. Lucia. Now, Monsieur Chasney parlé about and teasing about St. Jude. Tan sa il dit nous. Il dit nous comme ça. Et qui pas menti. 3 premiers ministres. Stevenson King, Kenny Anthony et Philip J. Pierre. Là où a de l'argent, yo 3 dépensé en les St. Jude ensemble, il a venu 400 millions de dollars et l'hôpital là pour qu'on finisse. Now, moi, je veux Jean Saint-Lucie comprendre ça. Premier ministre Alan Chasney pas jamais dépensé $1 à sous vieux Saint Jude là. Les vini travailler joindre qui te ka continuer, il quitte il continue. Li même pourquoi a dépensé l'argent en les vieux Saint Jude là parce que les ouais commerce là qui était là, excité kay point pour manger l'hôpital ça, il réalisé, il était pris en bénéfice Saint-Lucien pour bâtir un l'hôpital neuf. Yon 130 millions de dollars dépensé à l'hôpital neuf là. So là ou ka check l'argent qui dépensé à sous vieux Saint-Jude là, pas check ça gouvernement en bas monsieur Alan Chasney fait parce que c'est pas lui qui te fait rien à sous vieux Saint-Jude là. Tant ça rapport because nous about evidence là nous pas juste parler ou changer yo te meilleur comité en charge. Mi moi ni rapport comité en la même là. Rapport ça a sorti le 28 octobre 2021, 28th of October, submitted to the office of the Prime Minister. Un rapport à sous St. Jude. Et moi vle remind nous parce que c'est important pour nous comprendre c'est moun nan qui en charge là because hodi a tout moun vle di ko yo ek di yo di ou c'est pas yo la tenir comité yo met ensemble pour te ça établi qui ça qui supposé fait avec St. Jude. Et tant ça comité a dit monsieur John Peters, Alison Jean, un whole pile di yo qui ka parler fort yo te là. A besoin moi vle yo parler. Mi sa rapport yo di. A sous page 28 10.3.1 the state of completion of works associated with the old or St. Jude Phase 1, that's the old St. Jude, which the review committee has observed at the time of the site visit. Tansai, 21st September 2021, suggests that many of the buildings and functional spaces was 75% complete and that only 2 areas was still requiring major works in order to attain practical completion, including the central surgical wing and the west wing. Bon, les yon to gouvernement, yon 130 millions de dollars déjà dépensé à sous vieux St. Jude là. Yon dit ite 75% complete. Ça mean yo 3 cas à dans te ha fait, yon cas qui te wete. Now moi vle ou ki ka comprendre. Si yon bay 3 cas pour yon 130 millions de dollars. Qui manière yon cas qui wete a ka prend 265 millions de dollars. St. Lucia, that report was a lie. Or somebody is misleading us in this country. Now, Tansidi, St. Jude Phase 1 can attain full approval from the Development Control Authority. The entire operations at George Odlum Stadium can commence within 18 months. En 2021, 2021, yo di nou an 18 mois, yo kay commence relocate from George Odlum Stadium to the St. Jude that they were repaying. Ki l'année nou a da présent. So from October 2021 pour septembre, from October l'année 2021, 2021, pour septembre 2025, il peut en 18 mois. Mais Otchebe moins coupable. Les moi te dit si nous pas fini Saint Jude, nous pas supposé en gouvernement. Et moi d'accord. Parce que moi te dit parole là. What's about ces moun sa? Now moi vle ou prend ti calculation. King te ni 2 l'année pour travailler sur Saint Jude, 2009 to 2011. Kenny te ni 5 l'année, 2011 to 2016. Et ki jani 4 l'année et 2 mois. Eh bien, 1 mois. Philippe J. Pierre là. So 5 and to 7, 11 l'année. Les baka travail à son vieux l'hôpital et qui pas ça fini. Monsieur Alan Chasney te ni 5 l'année. 2 ans l'année ça te affecté par Covid. So en 3 l'année nous bâti en l'hôpital neuf qui déjà presque fini. Et 11 l'année nous ni 3 premiers ministres qui try fini en vieux l'hôpital qui ni 4 ou 20 l'année et qui au poko ça fini. Et ou ka di moi that nous pas te faire right decision. Saint Lucia, there is more to be said and there is more to know. Why haven't we gotten an update? And think of it. If 75% was 130 million, then 100% would be in the range of, let's say, 175 million. And if we round it off to 200 million, then it means that if they had spent 130, another $70 million should have completed St. Jude. So why are we spending $265 million to do a $70 million job? So the persons, Mr. John Peters, who claims to be an expert and a qualified engineer, I want you to come and explain these numbers and these figures to the people of St. Lucia. Because if y'all misled the government to cause us to spend this extra 200 million, y'all should be held accountable. That entire committee should be held accountable. So, même si nous rendons pour $200 000, so, yo te kay ni 70 million pour dépenser. Hot have I have 270. Ek metan outside of sa yo ha pay contractor lot 40 million. Ek hot ha mene 300 Indiens sort India pour travail. Travail la hot di ki te ha 75% complete. 300 Indiens from India poko sa fini e han l'année yo la ka travail. Mizot ba yo an lot 7 ans. Moi mene se work permit la moi mouto cabinet conclusion na. Ou ba yo free work permit pour 2027. So sa min nou sa bien. St. Jude pa kay fini avant 2027. Même si hot try kwene moun avant election. So St. Lucia, they say hindsight you get 2020 vision. In hindsight, we can look back and we can conclude that the best decision we could have made was to build a new hospital for the south of the island, because the south of the island deserves a state-of-the-art hospital. Ou vle tan pli about se bay sa, ou vle tan pli about plan partisan flambeau, ou vle tan ki sa nou kay fè lè nou présente 17 candidats, ek mwen ka challenge Labour Party, yo pas sa présente 17 candidats. Vini Mikoun li set the anniversary of our great leader's death, Sir John. Nou ka desan Mikou, nou ka fè an rally. Mwen vle di tout jan pa West Castries Southeast. Nou ka assemble en Forestier pou yonè bol Église Methodiste la. Ek nou ka fè an motoket desan pou pase Badni, Odsan, ek nou ka desan ay Mikou. Nou ka moutwe yo kouay flambeau en Castries Southeast. But nou vle Saint-Lucie sot d'or. Nou vle Saint-Lucien sot d'or. Ek même si ou pa sot d'or, lè nou ka pase me an bay jon an balkon, ma we an bay jon an dan pied flè. Ou evan bay pou moutwe that sipo ala. We need to rescue our country. We need to right the wrongs that have been done. We need to reclaim our ports. We need to be in government to renegotiate this GPH agreement that cannot stand under UWP government in its present form. It is too much against us and too much in favor of GPH. You want to hear our plans? You want to hear what we will do? Come on the 7th to Mikud. Let's turn out in large numbers. And let us send a clear message to Philip J. Pierre and his administration. It is time to ring the bell so that the United Workers' Party can right the wrong. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Guy Joseph, the United Workers' Party's endorsed candidate for Castries Southeast. And as Mr. Joseph just told you, on Sunday, the 7th of September, the United Workers' Party will be holding a grand rally in Miku, where all 17 candidates will be presented. And of course, you will hear from the political leader some of the plans that the United Workers' Party has in store when they form the government to rescue St. Lucia and to begin to right the wrong. I want to thank our three presenters, Senator Dominic Fede, Mr. Guy Joseph, and political leader of the opposition, Honorable Alan Shasney. I want to thank members of the media. I want to thank all of you who have been following us on live stream, whether here in St. Lucia, in the region, or in the diaspora. Please join us again on Thursday morning from 9 o'clock, when we will be having Meet the Opposition on Rev Up St. Lucia, where you can join us. I think our political leader or one of the leaders will be in studio, and we will have further discussions on the issues that are of interest and concern to you. Of course, do not forget, once again, St. Lucia, all roads lead to Miku on Sunday, where we will be having that massive rally where, apart from presenting the 17 candidates, presenting some of the policies of the party, we'll be presenting to you a show of strength to indicate to the present government that the United Workers' Party is ready to salvage what's left of St. Lucia and to begin to right the wrong. So, Prime Minister, it is incumbent upon you to ring the bell, because we are going to demonstrate to you that we and the rest of St. Lucia are ready to make a change for the betterment of this country. I want to thank you and have a very good day.